Right now, the National Weather Desk, winter outlook, the factors that make forecasting this year's snow season so difficult.
That, in combination with the way the oceans look this year, gave me pause to even do this winter forecast.
Eye in the sky. We'll take you above the North Carolina wildfires to see how they are fighting the flames they cannot see.
It's hard detecting the heat without the thermal imagery.
Volcano alert. One of Iceland's most popular attractions closes over fears of an eruption. Coral making a comeback. The remarkable story of the rebirth and regeneration off the coast of Australia
gives hope that this wonder of the world might still be rescued.
And turtle power prevails. The good news from the nests along the South Carolina coastline.
From our nation's capital, this is the National Weather Desk.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the National Weather Desk. I'm Angela Brown. For the first time in years, California is completely drought-free. The latest map from the U.S. Drought Monitor shows only abnormally dry conditions in the far northern and southern tips. Last year, much of the state faced extreme and exceptional drought conditions. Last winter's rain and snow helped to push the reservoirs to 125% above average. As for the rest of the nation, the worst conditions are across the South, actually, with Louisiana and southern Mississippi facing exceptional drought conditions. But there is good news for that region today. More rain apparently is on the way. It started coming down yesterday and now may not let up in some places until tomorrow. Portions of East and South Texas should get the most, but drenching rain is expected from Louisiana to Georgia. The final total could equal a month's worth of rain falling, though, in just a few days. Every year, there is a winter outlook. There are several different sources people can turn to for a prediction of the winter ahead. But this year has been a bit harder to predict than others. Meteorologist Patrick Powell explains why.
This is a graphic from NOAA, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, showing the drop in Arctic sea ice over the last 40 years. According to NOAA, we have lost 2.5 million square kilometers of Arctic sea ice in the last 40 years. And that has an influence on the jet stream. We have large temperature differences between a cold North Pole and the warm tropics, and that leads to a faster jet stream. But when the Arctic is significantly warming, and the tropics aren't, the tropics are holding fairly steady, that leads to less of a temperature difference. So you end up with more undulations in the jet stream and much larger waves in a slower moving jet stream. The problem is you don't know exactly where those waves are going to set up. So it leads to extended dry and extended wet patterns and more stubborn and slow moving storms. That, in combination with the way the oceans look this year, gave me pause to even do this winter forecast. This is the ocean temperatures anomalies as of November 2nd. In the yellows, oranges, and reds, it goes above. And in the light blues down towards the dark blues, that's below average ocean temperatures. Obviously, very strong El Nino ongoing in the eastern Pacific, but it has spread all the way out, almost all the way to Australia. So a very strong El Nino in the central Pacific. On top of that, almost the entire North Pacific basin running well above average. Almost the entire North Pacific. On top of that, almost the entire Indian Ocean is running way above average. The Mediterranean, the Black Sea, parts of Europe, the North Sea running above average. The only ocean basin that's even close to average is the South Atlantic, well south of the equator. The North Atlantic, on the other hand, extremely warm, and it has been this way through the entire summer. The Caribbean Sea and the Gulf of Mexico also running way above average.
And North Carolina fire crews are fighting fire with fire as they work to contain the popular dry fire. Ed D'Aureel has more about an operation to prevent areas that already saw fire from catching fire again.
We're not leaving it until we know there's no threat to reburn.
Though the Poplar Drive fire has burned over 430 acres, that doesn't mean everything on the trees was affected.
As long as leaves are falling from the trees, then that is new fuel available for the fire to feed off of and potentially grow, potentially reignite or re-escape.
That's where the burnout comes in. Thursday, crews burned some of the remaining leaves, causing for more smoke to rise. While the operation was planned and controlled, crews will continue to use other tactics to keep more leaves away from containment lines.
The hand crews are equipped with backpack leaf blowers, and they're constantly patrolling the fire lines and keeping that leaf litter from piling up on the containment lines.
Containment is still at 15%, a number that hasn't increased much, but it also hasn't gotten worse.
It's good that we've been there for now 3 or 4 days. That means the fire's not growing. That means the containment lines that we've established are doing their part. Everything's going exactly how we are planning for it to.
And technology plays a big role in fighting the North Carolina fires. Justin Berger has more about the aerial help drones provide to those on the front lines.
Comparing the daily progress in heat reduction is a lot easier with this in the air.
We can give the guys in the field, a list or a map. We have like our tablets that we can put the dots on, and they can walk right to the dot and see it's a stump hole or something. They can put water on it.
While flying, the drone takes infrared photos that are then fed to a computer program that spits out the data.
We used to call it gridding by hand, and you would literally use the back of your hand and grid for hot spots.
And this changes that.
It makes it a little easier on everybody.
Bishop says there could be thousands of hot spots the drone is seeing, giving crews an exact location where to look the next day.
We all can see smoke from the helicopters or from the regular camera, but it's hard detecting the heat without the thermal imagery.
Able to fly through most weather and water resistant, the medium-sized drone is equipped with a wide-angle camera, a camera with 200 times zoom capability, a thermal imagery camera, as well as a laser rangefinder that can pinpoint exact locations.
I'm at 1,000 feet tonight.
A much quicker mission time Wednesday night because the drone was able to fly at 1,000 feet following the temporary flight restriction from the surface to 7,500 feet.
We can fly our drones because we are in contact with our aircraft, and on the fire we act as an aircraft. Like, we do the same protocols they do.
Bishop estimates the drones can see 30 to 40 miles on a clear day, but the missions must occur at night because the sun can create false positives on the thermal camera.
5 years ago this week, the Camp Fire sparked and left behind a trail of destruction. More than 80 people died, and the living were left with traumatic memories. A new collection of stories is out and tells the stories of survivors. Anna Mortimer has more about the origin of the new book, Shifting Through the Ashes.
Although everybody went through the same experience, each experience was very different.
Darla Gale is from Sacramento, and when the Camp Fire swept through the North State, she knew she wanted to help, using her nonprofit Heartstrings Counseling to assist trauma survivors.
Within a month of the fire, I told my team at Heartstrings, let's go help them. And so we started going up monthly and doing group counseling with them. A large group of survivors asked if we would write a book. And what they really wanted were their stories to be honored.
And by doing so, Gail saw the opportunity to also offer PTSD and trauma navigation tips.
I thought if we can make this book twofold, so honor their stories, but at the same time, let's add clinical guidance and mental health interventions, tips, resources, so that anybody could get the help that they need.
In the book, Sifting Through the Ashes, Gail found that PTSD stands out amongst most survivors.
PTSD is like a prison in your brain. That's the only way I can explain it. It gets trapped in your brain, sight, sounds, smells. But the cool thing is it doesn't have to be a life sentence for them.
Hoping to reach more fire victims to help offer them the tools to regulate their trauma.
Reading this and the stories of survivors who have been through the same thing is super helpful.
And Iceland's famed Blue Lagoon is temporarily closing this morning. A series of earthquakes has the island nation on alert for a possible volcanic eruption. The Blue Lagoon is a geothermal spa and one of Iceland's most popular attractions. The area around it has seen hundreds of small earthquakes over the last 2 weeks. A volcano just 6 miles away has erupted 3 times since 2021 after being dormant for roughly 800 years. And coming up on the National Weather Desk, we'll head to Australia's Great Barrier Reef for a look at this year's coral spawning season, and we'll find out how hurricanes can spread invasive species.
I'm meteorologist Charlie Lopresti with a look at the Northeast. Most areas will top out around 50 degrees today. Temps will be a few degrees warmer than yesterday. And the good news in the forecast, we have brighter skies returning. Most of that wet weather is going to stay off to our south today. That's about 2:30 in the afternoon. Saturday looks pretty good. Our Veterans Day in the Northeast will feature a lot of sunshine. Temperatures on Saturday will leave a little to be desired, though. Highs will struggle to get out of low to mid 40s, and that wind will be a little gusty. Full sun returns on Sunday.
I'm meteorologist Jonathan Myers, and here's a look at the Mid-Atlantic region. Up and down the 95 corridor, looks like a kind of wet day as our next weather maker moves in and moves through, especially as you get north of Richmond up toward Baltimore and Philadelphia. Some good rain coming down. Best chance of staying drier is going to be south toward, again, Richmond southbound Roanoke, but there still could be some patchy drizzle there as well. High temperatures much cooler, only in the 50s. That's the scene here.
I'm meteorologist Vetus Reed. Here's a look at your southeast forecast highs. We're looking at 61 in Nashville, 61 in Raleigh, 64 Birmingham, 74 Mobile. You get those 80s along the I-95 corridor from Charleston down through Jacksonville, Tampa. Cold front's going to continue to push through, bringing clouds and rain. You can see some showers and maybe a few rumbles of thunder over parts of Mississippi, Alabama as that front pushes through on Friday afternoon and Friday night. Looks like we'll see a little bit of cloudy weather and rain that's going to stick around on and off through parts of the weekend.
Weather Window, presented by the National Weather Desk.
Take a look at this parched land in the foreground in the Reno area, but along the horizon, those clouds are scattering showers. Photographers captured this week's waning crescent moon and the planet Venus, the view from Tulsa, Oklahoma, and Bakersfield, California. And while some trees are showing more branches than leaves, there's still plenty of fall color to admire in this part of Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
For more content like this, like the National Weather Desk on Facebook.
Warming oceans are considered the greatest threat to the world's coral reefs, but parts of Australia's Great Barrier Reef are showing some resiliency, with coral now starting to regenerate. Scientists are welcoming that news, but say there is still more to be done to protect this natural wonder. Ivan Watson has that story.
This is coral spawning. One of the world's greatest natural wonders is made up of billions of living creatures that reproduce like this each year. And this season has scientists excited.
We were out diving until about 11 o'clock last night looking at the coral spawning, and we were lucky enough to see some of the species spawning. Not all of them, but we saw the soft corals, and they filled up the water with bundles of eggs and sperm, which was really spectacular.
It's a display of nature's resilience, repeated around this time of year across the Great Barrier Reef's nearly 133,000 square miles. But while some parts of the reef remain healthy, other parts are bleaching and dying, killed by temperature rise due to global warming.
They're a little bit like Goldilocks. They need the temperature and other conditions to be just right. And if they go outside of those boundaries, then we have this phenomenon called coral bleaching.
Scientists in Australia are studying ways to boost the chances for successful reproduction. Right now, it is nature that holds the key to the reef's survival.
This process of sexual reproduction, which is what's going on, is also one of the ways in which you get natural adaptation to changing conditions. Now, one of the big challenges with climate change is it's happening so fast that it may mean that the genetic variability isn't able to keep up with it. But nonetheless, it's really important that the process is happening.
The coral spawning at Moore Reef near the city of Cairns gives hope that this wonder of the world might still be rescued. The speed at which we transition to green energy and the degree to which our planet warms will determine how much of the Great Barrier Reef can be saved.
And hurricanes can bring several issues to a community: physical, financial, also emotional. But as Connor Ingalls reports, hurricanes can also bring unwanted species to new communities, upsetting the local ecosystems.
After a major storm event, you might have storm surge, you might have downstream inundation, high flow events, and you may get some residual water on the landscape. This might create potential corridors for species to move.
Ian Fingston works with the U.S. Geological Survey, specifically tracking the dozens of plants and animals that move around because of hurricanes. But what's the big deal with a snail deciding to start fresh in a new city? Who among us, right? Well, when you move, you presumably don't ruin the local ecosystem.
A new species in a place arrives. Maybe it outcompetes another species for food. And so the species that we were previously catching or seeing a lot of is reduced in its abundance, or maybe its size, or maybe there aren't as many of them. And the new species gets more numerous and or bigger and makes more, and eventually sort of edges out, if you will, the original species.
And this can also have adverse effects on things like fisheries and nurseries and agriculture. And so then there's also these detrimental effects that occur in the economic realm.
Water hyacinth has started popping up in South Carolina waterways. It looks pretty, but it can be a real ugly problem. Just ask our neighbors in the Sunshine State.
Down in Florida, entire lakes will fill with water hyacinth, and consequently boaters, fishermen can't get in there. And so that's an economic impact as far as tourism and recreation is concerned.
But we can't stop hurricanes. So what can we do? For one, keep an eye out for any potential new critters or plants you see around your neighborhood's waterways, and let the USGS or DNR know if you spot someone who looks like they just moved in.
The South Carolina sea turtle nesting season has come to an end. Officials say this year saw a total of over 6,200 nests. That number is higher than average, even though losses were reported from Tropical Storm Idalia. Loggerheads are the most common turtles to dig their nests in the state, but 19 green turtles nests were found as well. This year's weather is being blamed on the loss of at least 6,000 nests, but nationwide, sea turtle nesting numbers have been increasing over the last decade. Well, many people are familiar with seasonal depression, but depending on where you live, the impacts can be different. Tyra Majors is in Seattle, where seasonal affective disorder is more common than you may think.
Even though we have an extra hour to sleep, Seattleites may start to experience mood changes as the time and season moves to shorter days and longer nights. Dr. Lisa Shinvason with Polyclinic Seattle says it's more common than most may think.
Seattle is the most cloudy city in the continental U.S. So about 2/3 of our days are categorized as cloudy.
And during those cloudy days, the American Psychiatry Association says about 5% of adults in the U.S. experience SAD, and it typically lasts about 40% of the year.
Sometimes, especially if it's really bad for some people, it will cause them to even enter into depression.
The symptoms can be as severe as depression and even more mild, such as fatigue, loss of interest in activities once enjoyed, or changes in appetite.
Literally, we just started having these cloudy days. So this is the perfect time for us to try to get as much light as possible, whether that is natural light. So being outside is fantastic.
Dr. Shinvason also says artificial lighting will do, such as a UV light, and lastly, staying active.
Exercise, lots and lots of exercise, and also sometimes just that healthy eating.
And we love unique cloud formations at the National Weather Desk. Meteorologist Alan Sills saw some that resembled waves over the Gulf Coast Wednesday and explains how they formed.
A crisp day on the Gulf Coast, and we see a wave cloud. And it's called a wave cloud because it looks like waves on the ocean. Technically, it's known as fluctus. Say that carefully. And that word has the same origin as the word fluctuate, a Latin origin. These were originally described by Kelvin and Helmholtz, two scientists in the 1800s, and they're caused by wind shear. When you look at it in time lapse, you notice how the top is moving to the right a lot faster than the middle and the bottom. In fact, at the bottom, those are cirrus clouds, ice crystals, and they are falling and being dragged behind. That's also known as a fall streak. Now, wave clouds happen frequently. You just have to be at the right place at the right time to see a really interesting scene. I'm meteorologist Alan Seals.
And time now for a short break, but first we take flight over North Carolina's Bailey Mountain Preserve.
Good Friday morning, everyone. I'm meteorologist Andrew Buckmichael. Taking a look at your weather story across the Midwest here. Dry for most of us. There is some rain kicking out of Kentucky earlier today. And as we move into your weekend, most of the Midwest still continuing to deal with cool temperatures and dry weather for your weekend. Here's a look at Saturday and jumping into your Sunday. Again, most of us continuing to stay dry. A lot of sunshine across the plains on Sunday as temperatures try to start creeping up a little bit more.
Good Friday morning to you. Meteorologist Chris Suchant. Look at our forecast today across the region. A lot cooler, 30s and 40s, 50s behind the front to get your day started. The afternoon, not as much rain. Should be able to get some sunshine Oklahoma to Arkansas. A little bit more cloud cover, Louisiana and Texas. Rain, South Texas. And then Saturday, the highest rain chance will be along the Gulf Coast, New Orleans, Corpus Christi. The rest of the region, much cooler day there to get the weekend started with highs in the 50s and 60s.
Well, TGIF, everybody. I'm meteorologist Shannon O'Donnell. Friday is here. We're into our Veterans Day weekend, and it looks like it's going to be a stormy one for some of us out west, particularly in the PNW. A drier break today for Seattle and Portland, but not for long. It will be wet and windy as we head into our Friday night. Cool in Phoenix at 78, 42 out of Jackson Hole. Next, weather maker, the latest cold front dropping into Puget Sound with those gusty winds as we head into this evening. And that's the scene from here.
You are watching the National Weather Desk.
It's Friday, time to check in on how the weather will impact this weekend's football games. Here's meteorologist Katie Morgan.
Let's take a look at the forecast. We'll start with your college matchups in Washington, Seattle to be exact, Utah at UW, looking at temperatures in the low 50s. Rain showers possible in Seattle. And looking at breezy conditions as well. Will be a cool game. Then we head to Como or Columbia, Missouri, where Tennessee is taking on Mizzou. Looking great here with sunny skies and 60-degree weather. And Michigan at Penn State should be a good matchup here. Lots of sunshine and a bit chilly with temperatures in the mid-40s. Now we take a look at some of your Sunday matchups. Texans in town taking on the Bengals in the Queen City. Lots of sunshine with temperatures in the mid-50s. 72 in Jacksonville, with the 49ers in town taking on the Jaguars. We'll see a chance for a little bit of rain there and some breezy conditions. Sunshine, a few clouds in Baltimore with a temperature at 54. We've got the Browns at the Ravens. Hope you guys are having a great start to your Friday. Have a great weekend.
And thank you so much for joining us. I'm Angela Brown. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you right back here on Monday. Oh, okay. 3, 2, 1. Winter can be downright bitter. Instead of focusing on the toughness of winter, what about putting a spotlight on the season's cozy comforts, like sipping hot chocolate, feeling snug in a warm wool sweater, sitting by a blazing fire? These are part of the Scandinavian mindset of embracing winter. Meteorologist Christian Palacio reports from Wisconsin. When describing how cloudy the skies are, meteorologists use several different terms there, and Zahn explains some of them. It's been very dry in Texas this year, and hurricane season did not bring any big storms. 3, 2, 1. It's been very dry in Texas, and this year. Sorry, this is me. 3, 2, 1. It's been very dry in Texas this year, and hurricane season did not bring any big storms, but November is bringing something rare, a spike in mosquito numbers, and Angel San Juan explains. That's how you say his name, right? 3, 2, 1. A unique project is underway in Northern California. It involves bringing 10,000 tons of gravel to a river with the goal of helping salmon and other fish spawn. Max Tedford is in Redding, California with those details. This is rutting season for deer. That means the animals are very active, especially from dusk till dawn. Encountering deer while behind the wheel is all too common and also very dangerous. Cedric Bolton is in Iowa, where police are telling drivers don't veer for deer. And before we take a short break, let's soar over the desert Southwest. It's the time, 3, 2, 1. It's the time of the year when we start to see frost forming. But did you know that frost can form even when temperatures are above freezing? Meteorologist Lindsay Storrs explains. We'd love to share your weather content on the air. You can find us on all of your favorite social media platforms. Just search the National Weather Desk. We'll be right back. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Angela Brown. Make it a great Monday, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow.